Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is a companion video. Now, what are companion videos? Well, I'm awfully glad that you asked. See, every day on the John Campea Show, Monday through Friday, we take time to take live questions. However, we don't always have enough time to get around to all the live questions that get sent in, but I want to make sure if those questions got sent in that they get answered properly in a video. So that's what we do here. We gather them up and we address them here on companion videos. So, without any further ado, let's start getting caught up on these questions, shall we? And we're going to get things started here with Jake J, who writes, if there is no reconciliation between the two parties, what do you make of Universal's chances of having another movie join the $1 billion club ever? All right, so of course, what he's referring to is this whole blow up going on between Universal, and it's not just AMC anymore. And remember, I told you, AMC said, if you try to release your movies in theaters and on VOD at the same time, you're never going to play on AMC screens. And I told you guys, I said, listen, I guarantee you all the other major theater chains are going to do the same. Well, today, after the John Campea Show, Cineworld and the theater they own, Regal Cinemas, came out and basically said the same thing, that we're not going to play Universal movies anymore if they try to pull a day and date release thing. Try to put your movie in theaters and on VOD at the same time. Yep, you're not going to play in our theaters either. That includes the biggest theater chain in Europe, the two biggest theater chains in the US with AMC and Regal, and other theater chains will follow suit. I believe this will get worked out. But theoretically speaking, Jake, if they don't work it out, Universal's never going to have a $1 billion film again because no movie theaters are going to play their movies. And you ain't going to make anywhere near $1 billion unless you're in the movie theaters. So yeah, if they don't get this worked out, Universal will never have a $1 billion film again. But I do believe they will get this worked out. As a matter of fact, shortly after AMC made the threat and said, if you do that, you're never going to play on AMC screens, Universal CEO came out and walked back what he had said previously, saying, oh, no, you misunderstood. No, you knew what you were saying. But they did walk back what they said. So I think everything will be fine. We'll just have to wait and see. We'll talk about it more on the John Campea Show tomorrow. All right, JCL Productions writes, hey, John, who would be a dream interview for you for your documentary if you could get them to be a part of it? Steven Spielberg. Simple, period, end of sentence, Steven Spielberg. I mean, having the greatest filmmaker of all time, in my opinion, having the greatest filmmaker of all time talk about, movie trailers and the whole, phenomena of movie trailers and what movie trailers have meant to the history of the movies, what they mean to the movies now and what they will mean to the movies moving forward in the future. Having the greatest filmmaker of all time, Steven Spielberg, that would be my dream. And he's also like one of the very, very few celebrities I've never actually had a chance that I would want to sit down and interview. Steven Spielberg would be a dream one for me. 100%. That's my final answer. Steven Spielberg for sure. JCL. All right. Josh Willis writes, my top tracks from movie scores, no order, Time from Inception, Flight from Man of Steel, Adagio in D minor, Sunshine, The Departure, Gattaca, Promontory from Last of the Mohicans, The Eternal Vow, Crouching Tiger, The Battle, Gladiator, Gortaz, Iran, Black Hawk Down. I mean, for me, I'm going to have to go like Imperial March, Star Wars. I would actually go from Man of Steel. I would go, What Are You Going to Do When You're Not Saving the World from Man of Steel. Several of the pieces from Lord of the Rings, Howard Shore's Lord of the Rings, but a lot of stuff that you listed here, Josh, are really excellent too. That's a nice list. I like the idea for the list. That's great. All right. Dan Ketchum writes, Evil Earth 2 John should have a Spock goatee. Maybe I should. Maybe Earth 2 John should get a goatee, kind of like the mirror universe of Mr. Spock. That would actually... Now you've given me an idea that I might actually follow through on. Wait and see. All right, the Wakandan Forever writes, which is more impressive, most Oscar wins or the EGOT? Oscar wins. I mean, because listen, there are some people who are close, because the EGOT is a very, very exclusive club. But there are a couple of them who are kind of like, yeah, that happens to fall under this category. I would say having the most Oscar wins. Like, for instance, I would say Meryl Streep's record of Oscar nominations is more impressive than an EGOT. But then again, like the EGOT is so rare. And again, for those of you who know what we're talking about, what's an EGOT? An EGOT is winning an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. So we're winning a Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, Tony. There's only about, I think, 4 people who have the EGOT, is it 4 or 5? I can't remember, but it's a very, very small number. Whatever it is, it's a very, very small number. But I would still say most Oscar wins. That's just me, because the Oscars are nearly impossible to win at all. So to be the record holder for the most, I think that would be huge. All right, Complicated Simplicity. I like that name, writes. Worst or possible case scenario, a round 2 of the virus happens in the fall, meaning another theater shutdown, which means none of the Oscar-type movies. Would the Oscars still be awarded based on such a limited movie season, or would they take a break? My guess is, my thoughts on this have evolved as the further we get into this, because there was at one point a time when I thought, no, the Oscars aren't really going to be affected all that much. Now I'm starting to feel like they're going to be a little bit affected. I would say this, if we had another full round of this stuff come the fall with another 2 or 3 month theater shutdown during Oscar season, like when the Oscar contender films would go, under those, and that's a lot of ifs. That's a lot of ifs. But if that were to happen, I think the Oscars actually would consider canceling the Oscars that year. And just saying, you know what? We'll just say that all these films are also eligible for next year. And we'll have 2 years. 2 years. It'll be more smaller than that. But, in theory, we'll have 2 years worth of films count for the next Oscars. I don't know that that's what they'll do, but it seems to me like that makes the most sense. So I think it would affect it a lot. Complicated. I think it would affect it a lot. All right. Dangerous Lee writes, hey, John and Rob, if he's there. Not quite right now, he isn't. I rewatched Doctor Strange again, and though I personally don't place it high on my list of the MCU, the rooftop scene between Strange and the Ancient One as she slows down time is simply beautiful, damn near man cried. It is a wonder. I'd go so far as to say it's the best scene of the movie. I think it's the best scene of the movie. When the two of them are standing out there, it is a gorgeous, beautiful scene. I mean, visually, it's a beautifully constructed scene, but also emotionally, it's a beautiful scene. I liken it unto the Rocket and Thor scene in Infinity War. What else do I have to lose? I'm not saying it's on the exact same level, but I liken it unto it. You know what I mean? It's funny how in the midst of these big action comic book films, sometimes it's those small moments with emotional weight that are the ones that stand out to you the most. In Infinity War, it's Thor and Rocket. In Doctor Strange, it's the Ancient One in Doctor Strange. In the rain, in her last moments. It's a great, awesome, beautiful moment, and I completely agree with you, Dangerously. I completely agree. All right, Dangerously also writes, I thought Joe Carnahan's 2010 The A-Team was awesome. Most people would classify it as a guilty pleasure, but I don't because I genuinely enjoyed it. Film is subjective, but what's a guilty pleasure film that you feel truly doesn't earn that moniker? Well, I mean, here's the trouble. First of all, let me say I like the A-Team too, right? Liam Neeson, Bradley Cooper, Rampage Jackson. I liked A-Team. Anyway, anything that I wouldn't think deserves the moniker of guilty pleasure movie, then I wouldn't consider a guilty pleasure movie, right? It's very, very difficult to put a finger on that. I mean, it would have to go from person to person. So obviously, there's no film that I consider a guilty pleasure movie that I don't feel deserves the moniker of it. But it's a very, very subjective thing. But I'll tell you this, I agree with you about A-Team. I don't think A-Team is a great movie. Let's be clear. I don't think A-Team is a great movie. But it's an enjoyable little film. I liked it. I kind of wish it was successful enough that it could have been its own franchise. But yeah, I still dug it. So I'm with you on that one, Dangerously. I dug that one. All right, Nicholas Piera writes, I understood your point of view on realism in DC films last time, but I think what Nolan did was only possible once. When I talk about a retro-futuristic universe for DC heroes, it's because most of the time Warner Brothers have absolutely no idea what to do with them. I don't agree with that. They want their heroes to be relevant by emptying them of their vintage touch, but Cap and Wonder Woman didn't need this to be loved by the audience. The problem with Here's what I see as the problem with what you're saying, is that there are some characters who elements of their vintage nature plays perfectly well today, right? Captain America, they actually were able to lean into the vintage elements of Captain America and really make that work, because I think Captain America's elements translate well today. Wonder Woman, I would make the argument they really didn't do that much. Wonder Woman was very much a period piece, and they played it like a period piece, and I didn't really feel like they got into a lot of the vintage stuff of Wonder Woman as it is. Wonder Woman was a created character out of a guy who's trying to do an kind of an S&M kind of expressionism stuff. By the way, go watch the movie about the origins of the Wonder Woman character. It's fascinating. But I don't really feel, but the Captain America one I do. But like, for instance, Aquaman. That, like, the way Aquaman used to be portrayed in the comics and stuff like that and in cartoons, I don't think the vintage style of that applies. When it comes to characters, I don't think comic book characters are excluded from the rule of characters, that there's not a one-size-fit-all philosophy with comic book characters. Just because a certain approach or technique worked with one comic book character, that doesn't mean, oh, therefore that works with all characters. You know what I mean? There are some things that specifically work with certain characters like Captain America that would not necessarily translate as well to, say, a Batman, or translate well to, say, a, I don't know, Green Lantern or something like that. Because, for instance, part of what we know and identify of Captain America is he is a man out of time. That he is a relic of the Second World War. That he is, that's part of his identity. So we identify those nostalgic elements in Captain America in and of himself as a character. That's not true of Batman. We don't think of Batman in the 1920s. We don't think of Batman in the 1940s. We don't think of Batman in the 1960s. We think of the current iteration of Batman. And a vintage-like kind of look wouldn't work or apply as well, I think, to that character as it would to, say, a Captain America. That's not to say one character is better than the other. I'm just saying there are certain things that apply better to Batman, certain things that apply better to Captain America, certain things that apply better to Storm, certain things that apply better to Wonder Woman. I mean, it's as unique as the characters themselves. So anyway, that's just the way I see it, Nicholas. But I see where you're coming from that, and I think you make some valid points. All right. eSprit11 writes, "Hey, John. Today, Irfan Khan passed away. We talked about that on the John Campea Show earlier today. At the age of 54. He is probably best known in the West for his roles in Life of Pi, Jurassic World, The Amazing Spider-Man. He was a world-class performer. If you and don't forget Slumdog Millionaire. If you haven't, I definitely recommend watching more of his work in his honor. I mean, yeah, and it is, you know, Rob and I talked about that today. He was, and it's unfortunate that we in the West only knew him for so much, because when he was on screen, even as a Western audience, there was something commanding about him. And he carried like a very unique chameleon-like ability where you could totally see him as the caring uncle and also as the most terrifying villain all at the same time. He carried that kind of presence, you know? And I know he was a much bigger deal in the Bollywood scene than he was in the West, but he just showed how immense his talent was, that he could easily move from one to the other. And it really is a loss, man. It really is a loss. All right, Zach Keel writes, "A local theater here in India, or Indiana, I should say. I have India on the brain now. A local theater here in Indiana has been selling popcorn on Saturdays to stay afloat. Cars line up on the street to buy some. Seems to be helping a lot. Sounds like this is a great idea. Other theaters should try this." You know, we've been talking about that on the channel. Other people have been writing in, talking about other theaters that do that. I'm not sure a lot of people would go for that, but if you're saying cars are lining up to get them, sign me up. Like, I miss the movie theater. Like, I even miss eating out. Like, I was telling the story on the show that Ann and I will, even when we sit down to have dinner now, we'll put on a YouTube video of ambient restaurant sounds just to feel like we're out again. The idea of actually being able to sit down and pop on a movie at home and have, which sucks compared to a real movie theater, but if I was able to actually have a real bag of movie theater popcorn, that would just make it feel a little bit more right. That would just feel a little bit more right. So I don't think the theaters around me are doing it. And I honestly don't know if it would be even worth the cost of doing it. But man, I would enjoy that. So I love the idea, Zach. I really do love the idea. All right, Dustin Crawford writes, "Hey, John and crew. A few months back, the Hollywood Reporter reported that Warner Brothers signed with predictive AI company." Yeah, I remember that story. Synalytic. "How do you think this will affect films both large and small, especially now that studios will surely be looking to make up for COVID-related losses?" I'll say the same thing now that I said back then when the story first came out. I don't really know. Like, there's only so much data and analytics can be used for predictively. Data, and look, I'm a data and analytics guy. I think data and analytics gives us worlds of information. How good can they be as far as audience patterns with certain movies predictively? I don't know. And I'm not saying that, skeptically. I'm just saying, I don't know. It could be incredibly powerful and influential. It could just be a gimmicky fad that they try and this comes and goes without so much of a whisper. So I don't really know. I am a data and analytics guy, but I just don't know how good it can be for something predictive as far as our human behavior, particularly our human behavior and our responses to art. I'm not saying I doubt it. I'm just saying I have a little bit more trouble with that. So it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of unfolds once we get out of the COVID situation, Dustin. All right, good question, man. Next up, Jesse writes, while rekindling my love of Avatar, TLA, I don't know what that is. I'm learning, Avatar The Last Airbender. Okay. Guys, try not to use acronyms. Just tell me what it is you're talking about. I'm learning more about it than I did as a kid, like how the main villain, Firelord Ozai, is played by Mark Hamill. Oh, I had no idea. I didn't know Mark Hamill did a voice in that. I've never watched it. I keep getting people trying to get me to watch it. I have friends of mine trying to get me to watch it. I have people who know my taste pretty well that are insisting I'll like it. I've just never gotten around to watching it. I'm just in the midst right now of watching a show that I didn't watch before, which is What We Do in the Shadows, which just started season 2. So I'm going to have to give it a shot sometime. But I did not know that about Mark Hamill, Jesse. It's always cool when you find out new things about a show or a movie you appreciate. As a matter of fact, a little bit earlier today, me and the Patreon supporters did a live stream view and watch of Step Brothers, one of my favorite comedies. And some of the Patreon members in the chat were letting me know some things that I had no idea about for the movie. Like apparently the house that they shot Step Brothers in, like the main house in Step Brothers, was like right next door to what the house where they shot Halloween. It's like, I had no idea. I always love finding out new things like that. So finding out Mark Hamill's in it, that's actually pretty cool. All right, an anonymous viewer writes, hey, John. In my opinion, The Normal Heart, 2014, if released theatrically and not as an HBO movie, would have received multiple Oscar nominations, definitely one for Best Picture. Off the top, do you have any TV movies that you think would have been Oscar nominees? No. No, I don't. That's not to say there haven't ever been any good ones. I don't even know what The Normal Heart is. Let me look this up here. The Normal Heart. IMDb, 2014. Directed by Ryan Murphy. A gay activist attempts to raise HIV and AIDS awareness during the 1980s. Sounds promising. Starring Mark Ruffalo, Jonathan Groff, Frank DiGiulio, William Demerit, Taylor Kitsch. I like Taylor Kitsch a lot, as a matter of fact. B.D. Wong is in there. Speaking of B.D. Wong, I was just mentioning I'm watching What We Do in the Shadows. He was just in an episode of What We Do in the Shadows, which I thought was hilarious. Matt Bomer. That's an impressive cast list. I have never heard of it. So I cannot say for sure. For me, off the top of my head, any made-for-TV movies that would have been awesome, no, none come to mind. That doesn't mean none exist. I'm just saying, no, none come to mind. But thanks for putting that one on my radar, man. I'm not even familiar with it. HBO film came out in 2014. Thanks for pointing that one out, man. All right. Next up, Matthew Phillips writes, do you think the X-Men debut could be done in a Disney Plus series? They could establish who they needed at the proper pace, eventually leading to their MCU debut. It would even be like what they did with Captain Marvel. Thoughts? No, I really don't. Now listen, anything can happen, and Kevin Feige very well might do that. I'm just saying I'll be very surprised if he does. I don't think the right way to introduce mutants and the X-Men is in a Disney Plus series. I just don't think that's the right way to go. It's too significant of a major shift in what the MCU even is by bringing mutants in to introduce in a Disney Plus show. And I'm not disrespecting on Disney Plus shows, not that we've gotten one yet. We haven't gotten a Disney Plus MCU show yet, but I really don't feel like that's the place. And I really don't think Kevin Feige honors the material too much to have them introduced on a network that not even all the fans have and stuff like that. So no, I really don't think they're going to do that. Again, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying I will be surprised. I would be very, very surprised. I think that would be the wrong move. I really do. I honestly think that would be the wrong move. But time will tell. We will wait and see. All right. Edward Wells writes, movies coming out on streaming services now eligible for Oscar nominations. My money's on Trolls World Tour for Best Picture. Yeah, isn't that funny? Yeah, I mean, listen, we've been talking about for a number of weeks that the Academy had come out and said that we understand that we are going to need to make some changes to accommodate for what's going on this year. We understand that. And they have started coming out, we'll talk more about it on the John Campea Show tomorrow, but they've started coming out and laying out some more concrete things about what those changes are going to look like. Now that's, again, if there even is an Oscars come February, which I don't think is 100% right now. I feel pretty good about it, but I'm not 100% on it right now. But yeah, they said they were going to make changes. We knew that this year they're going to have to make some changes to allow for certain things. Don't expect those to be permanent changes, though. They won't be permanent changes. But to make some accommodations in recognition that this year presents a very specific set of circumstances that we all had to adapt to. And I think it's the right move on their part. I really do. All right, next up. Diamond Dog's Puppy writes, hey, John, underrated movie of the day is 1997's Copland. Copland is great. Ray Liotta, Sylvester Stallone. It's some people's favorite Stallone movie, as a matter of fact. It's a great, great film. Featuring a stellar cast, De Niro, Liotta, Harvey Keitel, the T-1000, and topped off with Stallone playing severely against type. I think it is one of the best cop dramas of the 90s. Thoughts? Yeah, I've talked about Copland a lot. And it is seriously one of the great performances from Sylvester Stallone. I really dig that movie. And I don't know that I would call it underrated because most people who have seen it give it a big thumbs up. But I would say underappreciated. Not enough people have watched it. And it's one I think most people should watch. It's really good. Again, the supporting cast alone is mind-blowing. But Stallone's performance, it just reminds you, yeah, Stallone's not just Rocky. He is a hell of an actor. And I think that's a really good one. Excellent recommendation, Diamond Dogs. Excellent recommendation. All right, an anonymous viewer writes, hey, John, I just watched The Servant on Apple TV Plus and thought it was great, unsettling, and really creepy. Have you checked it out? Nope. I mean, you can ask me about 80% of TV shows out right now, and I'll say, nope, I haven't checked it out yet. I mean, it's just, there's too much. There's just too much. But I will say, whereas everything on Apple Plus to me looked like throwaway nonsense, I watched For All Mankind, and it's great. I watched Morning Show, and it's great. And I didn't think either of them looked all that good. So there's still a number of other shows that I wouldn't mind checking out if I ever got the time, but I will admit, it's not high on my priority list right now. But hey, listen, I was pretty skeptical about Apple TV Plus, but it's impressed me so far. I got to admit, it has impressed me so far. All right. Alfredo Parra writes, watched Defending Jacob, speaking of Apple TV Plus, watched Defending Jacob on Apple TV Plus. Only the first 3 episodes have released, and they are fantastic. If you checked it out, nope, I haven't checked that one out either. That's the one with Chris Evans. Nope, I haven't checked that one out either. Same spiel that I gave in the last thing. I've not watched it yet. All right. Black Bono Lala writes, your thought on Die Hard 3 with Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson. It's my favorite Die Hard movie. You know, you got Jeremy Irons in there. Good Lord. He's so good in that movie. It is my favorite Die Hard movie. Now, of course, Hans Gruber in the first one is like one of the greatest cinematic villains of all time. But I thought the chemistry between Bruce Willis and Zeus. Hey, Zeus. Why do you call me Hey, Zeus? The guy said, hey, Zeus. He said, hey, Zeus. Anyway, I thought the chemistry between Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson was off the chart. Fantastic. I love that movie. I love Die Hard 3. All right, The Wakandan Forever writes, I didn't know the Irfan Khan by name, but I remember he always stood out whenever I saw him in a movie. To his family and fans, thoughts and prayers. Yeah, absolutely. And just at 54, the dude was so freaking young. He was so talented. And, you know, I can't even imagine like his Bollywood fans, how they must feel. Like we only got to see him in a limited number of films, like whether it's Slumdog or Life of Pi or The Amazing Spider-Man or Jurassic World. whenever we saw him, he just always delivered, and he always gave something unique and a strong presence on screen. And for people who have been following his career for a long time, it must be an even bigger loss. And again, I echo your sentiments, Wakandan Forever. I echo your sentiments. All right, Josh Bing writes, hey, John, today is my birthday. Happy birthday, Josh. The big 21. Glad I can catch the show live. Can't do much today, so at least this is something can do and enjoy. Something I can do and enjoy. Well, happy birthday to you, Josh. May you not only have a tremendous and wonderful day, may you have a great year ahead of you, filled with glorious victory, leading up to your next birthday as well. And thanks for spending part of your birthday with us on the show. I appreciate that, man. And may you have a fantastic birthday, dude. All right. Gaetan Fowl writes, John, Trolls Tour is coming in theaters abroad, don't forget. Is it? Are they? Yeah, be careful, because there are a number of international theater chains now saying they're not going to carry Universal films either. So I had no idea if they were still doing that. You know, oh, maybe I did know. I'm going to stick with that I didn't know. I'm going to stick with that I didn't know. It's going to be interesting to see how that kind of unravels. All right. Jinyu Hichi writes, PS4 is offering a free download of Uncharted, the Drake Collection, and Journey as a gift for staying at home. Get it now. I'm going to get it right away. And if that includes Uncharted 4, Thief's End, I'm going to get it right away. I'm going to get that right away. Thank you for putting that on my radar, Jinyu. As soon as I'm done recording this video, I'm going to go down, fire up my PS4, and go see if I can find that, because that sounds awesome. Thank you, dude, for making me and everybody else watching this video aware of that. That is awesome. Thank you, man. All right, Eric DeRiggi writes, remember the guy from 2 weeks ago who bought over 1,000 shares? Looks like he's winning. His investment went up 115%. Yeah, no kidding. Actually, it's funny. You know who else bought shares? My wife. And bought shares. She woke up this morning. The first thing she said to me, look at my AMC stock. And she showed it to me, and it was up over $5. Now, I don't know what it is right now. I'm going to look it up right now. It's still up. It's at $5. She bought it at $2.20. She bought it at $2.20. It's at $5.19 now. Yeah. Dude who bought 1,000 shares, that was a good call. I mean, he's made over $2,000 on that, just like that. Man, I remember when it was at 208, and I remember thinking to myself, I should gather up whatever money I can and buy AMC stock right now. But I didn't. I just got sidetracked, and I just didn't do it, and now it's at 519. It's funny that AMC comes out and lays down the hammer on Universal, saying we're not going to play your movies if you're playing that game. And what did AMC stock price do? AMC stock price shot up. Crazy, man. It's absolutely crazy. So you're right, Eric, and I'm kicking myself a little bit right now. All right, Eric DeRiggi also writes, in the words of the great Ron Jeremy, life is like a box of chocolates. So for those of you who don't know what I was talking about, earlier today, I meant to quote Ron Burgundy from Anchorman, the Will Ferrell character, saying that escalated quickly. So I said, in the words of Ron Jeremy, that escalated quickly. Of course, Ron Jeremy is a very different person. For those of you who don't know, a very famous 70s and 80s porn star. And I accidentally said Ron Jeremy instead of Ron Burgundy. And oh, you can just imagine how I didn't hear the end of that for the rest of the day in the chat section. And I got a feeling I still haven't heard the last of it, and I'm probably going to be hearing about it for a little while longer. Yep, the old Ron Jeremy quote. That's not going to leave me anytime soon. All right, the Hideaway Killer writes, Universal has to answer to shareholders. Yes, they do. They would never say this great plan didn't work. This just proves to me how much more Trolls would have made in theaters. Probably more than the first one if they had just waited. I'm not sure. To be fair to Universal, I'm not sure that Trolls 2 World Tour would have done better than the first Trolls. Now, the first Trolls made about $350 million at the box office. $350 million. I agree. They have been doing all sorts of PR spinning, trying to make it look like this adventure of theirs, like putting Trolls straight to VOD, has been some huge success. They are losing money hand over fist. As of today, and now they'll get a little bit more of this back, but as of right now, they are $53 million in losses on Trolls. $53 million in losses on Trolls. That's Unspeakable. I think you're absolutely right, Hideaway Kill. I think a lot of this positive PR spin and all this stuff that they've been juicing out has all been about keeping their shareholders happy, try to create this false impression. I don't know what it is, but a lot of people have been buying into it. They've made $77 million. They made $95 million in rentals, minus the roughly, and I've heard the numbers actually higher than 20%, but let's go with 20%. Minus the 20% that the stream providers take, and you're talking about they have made $77 million. The production costs alone were 95. They spent 60 million minimum on the marketing. It's a train wreck. It's an absolute train wreck. Not to mention, they did it in the perfect environment for them to do it. With the lockdown, everybody's at home, kids aren't in school, kids are at home too. And they just did a full theatrical marketing campaign. Everything was in their favor for a digital release. Everything was in their favor. And with every single possible advantage, the first 20 days, they made $77 million. Well done. Can you imagine if this had happened when they didn't have every possible advantage? If people weren't locked down at home and the schools weren't closed and people could go out and do other things with their entertainment dollars, can you imagine how badly Trolls 2 would have done? Now listen, to also be fair to Universal, $77 million still represents a huge loss for them, but I got to admit it's better than I thought they were going to do. I didn't even think they would do that well, to be honest. So I got to call it as it is. It's actually better than I thought they would do. It is. I got to admit that. It's better than I thought they would do. It's still a train wreck, but it's better than what I thought they were going to do. But what are they going to do, Hideaway? I mean, they got to spin it. They got to spin it, and they're doing a pretty good job spinning it too. All right, Ken Welch writes, question from Ron Jeremy, red pill or blue pill? With Ron Jeremy, always the blue pill, my friend. Always. I told you I was never going to get away from this. Eric DeRigi writes, remember when the lead actor of Aladdin said something about him not getting offered roles after hitting 1 billion? Guess no one saw Reprisal on Hulu. Now, from what I understood, I thought I said that once and then somebody corrected me because I thought Reprisal was a role that he already had. He already had that role before doing Aladdin. I believe that was the story because I think I said the same thing, and then somebody came back to me and said, well, actually, John, it said here, here, and here that he had that role already. So I guess there's that. Collins E writes, Ron Jeremy, you're going to need a bigger boat. Oh, now Ron Jeremy is Roy Schneider. Okay. I told you I was not going to hear the end of this. All right. Let's see what's next here. Hideaway Killer writes, but AMC should watch out. Comcast is vindictive. They are. They will buy them just so they can dictate. They can't buy them. They just bought a whole bunch of stuff in Europe. They don't have the liquid capital right now to do it. They will buy them just so they can dictate what they want to do. Look, they put in a bid for Fox just to drive up the price for Disney. They did, and it was effective. Disney ended up having to pay $20 billion more than they originally thought they were going to have to pay to buy Fox because Comcast came in, put in an initial higher offer to Fox, and forced Fox to up their offer even more. They spent $20 billion more. Now, again, the problem Universal is going to face is as of right now, it's not just AMC. Now Regal has come into it too. And we'll talk about this on the John Campea Show more tomorrow. But Regal is now weighed into this, and they're saying the same thing to Universal. We are not going to play your films, Universal. We're not going to play your films either. And I guarantee you every major theater chain in the United States is going to follow suit. And in Europe, because we're already seeing Cineworld in Europe is doing the same thing. Universal has got to watch their P's and Q's right now. Because if they don't, they're going to put out Fast and the Furious 9, and instead of making $1 billion, it's going to make 200 million, 175 million is what they'll make instead of $1 billion. They really have to tiptoe right now. And that's why Jeff Shell, CEO of Universal, after AMC laid the smackdown, had to come out and, hat in his hand and tail between his legs going, no, that's not what we meant. That's not what we meant. We know what you meant, dude. But yeah, he's walking back his comments now. They've got to be very, very careful right now. Because if all the theaters just say, we're not playing Universal movies, then you're talking about a Fast and Furious that makes 200 million instead of $1 billion. And that is something that people lose careers over. All right, Eric DeRiggi writes, if you're not first, you're last. Not my words, but the words of the exalted one, Ron Jeremy. And Dominic Toretto. More Ron Jeremy. I'm telling you, I'm gonna hear this for a while. Colin Z says, no, I am your father, Ron Jeremy. I told you, but I have no one to blame but myself. All right, Phil Corvelli writes, unpopular opinion. I actually like the added no from Vader in Return of the Jedi, but I don't like it in Revenge of the Sith. I hated the added no in Return of the Jedi. I hated it. To be fair, though, I think there's a possibility that I hated it just because it's not the way I remember it. And that's not a valid reason. But I hate it, but I acknowledge that there might be a partial thing of that reasoning is because it's just not the way I remember and loved it. But I hate them in both. I hate it in Revenge of the Sith. No, I hate it in Revenge of the Sith. I hate it in Return of the Jedi. I just basically hate it all the way around. So yeah, there's that, Phil. All right, Sahil writes, I love the smell of napalm in the morning. Ron Jeremy. Of course, that's from Francis Ford Coppola's Apocalypse Now. That's from Apocalypse Now, except probably a porn version, apparently, by Ron Jeremy. Russell Amador writes, dude, you're embarrassing me in front of the wizards. Of course, that's one of the great lines from Infinity War. I do love that line. You're embarrassing me in front of the wizard, which I thought was great. All right, Russell Amador writes, classic Tony to Bruce quip. Yeah, I love that quip. I really, really do. I thought that was fun. All right, Slevin Beam writes, puts in a big donation, $20. Thank you so much for that support, Slevin. I appreciate that around here. To be completely candid here, totally jealous of Earth 2 John. Man of Steel 2, that one lucky son of a bitch. LOL, keep up the great content, John. What do you think John Campea on Earth 47 is up to? Dragons on that Earth? Yes, and he's playing Dungeons and Humans with a bunch of dragons. He's playing Dungeons and Humans with a bunch of dragons. So if you don't know what Slevin's talking about here, if you haven't watched a couple of John Campea Show episodes, what I have done for the last while is when it comes time, after we're done all the main topics, Robert and I take a 4-minute break to stretch our legs, rest the vocal cords, refill our drinks. So, but I heard a few people saying, can you come up with something else? Because just sitting there watching a clock tick isn't the greatest thing. So what I started doing was the night before a show, I would take some of the early questions that got sent in for the next day's show, and I would pre-record myself answering them. And then instead of a 4-minute clock ticking down, we play that video of me answering those early questions, and then we come back to me and Rob. And I don't know why, but for some reason, I just called myself doing that Earth 2 John. Because, John of Earth 1 is hosting the show, and then I throw it to Earth 2 John. And I've been doing these fake news stories off the beginning. Like, here today on Earth 2, Man of Steel 2 with Henry Cavill came out today. I don't know why. I don't even know if it's funny or if it's just stupid, but I just did it because I thought it was fun. But that's what Slevin is talking about. So thanks a lot for supporting the channel, man. And I'm glad you're enjoying that stuff because I'm having a pretty good time doing it. And it is better than the countdown clock. It is better than the countdown clock. All right. Game World Intel writes, the pizza and rave scene in, I don't know what that is, was absolutely hilarious. Again, guys, please don't use acronyms. I have no idea what movie we're talking about. Now I feel bad because you wrote something in for me to respond to, and I can't respond to it because I don't know what we're talking about. Kenna writes, Requiem for a Dream, so good. And Shane's and Black Swan are two of the best movies I will never watch again. What movie do you love but you can't rewatch? The two that often come to mind are Schindler's List. Can't watch that again. It's brilliant. It's wonderful. I can't watch it again. And Detroit, by the same director who did Hurt Locker. I can't watch that one again. It's brilliant. It's brilliantly acted. It's powerful, but it's too effective. And it just makes me feel kind of rotten, watching it. And yeah, those are two films for me, man, that I absolutely love. I can watch Black Swan again. Requiem for a Dream is another tough one. That's a really tough one to watch. And so is Black Swan in some ways. I have watched Black Swan a couple times, but Schindler's List, Detroit are two movies I just can't watch again. There's probably a few others, but those are the two ones that come to mind immediately, Ken, and I totally get where you're coming from on that. All right, Josh Needle writes, Screw the theatrical window. I don't see movies for the theatrical experience. I see them for the movie. We should be given the choice to choose between theaters and home viewing for new movies. But no, because it's not a human right. It's not your right to take somebody's product the way you want to take it. I mean, that's the thing, right? This is the movie business. The reason the theatrical window is important is because not only is the theatrical experience the better experience, everybody's different. It may not be that way for you, and I respect that, but for a lot of people it is. But beyond that, it is the model that makes the movie industry possible. It's the model that makes the movie industry possible. And Trolls 2 is a great example of that. You know, in theaters, Trolls makes $350 million. On streaming, under the best circumstances imaginable for streaming, it made 77. You know, somebody wrote into me today during the John Campea Show that actually illustrates this point. You know, they said, you know, John, if a family of 4 wants to go to the movies, buy 4 tickets, whole bunch of popcorn and candies and sodas and blah for the whole family, it's like $80. And yeah, that's fair. That's $80. Then they said, whereas if they could watch it at home for $20, then they get to watch it at home for $20. And I said, okay, I see what you're saying, but really look at what you just said. You just gave the reason why movie studios can't afford to do it that way. They can't afford it. Because now you've got 4 people watching it for just $20 instead of 4 people watching it for $60. Movie studios cannot afford to have that happen. Because here's what's going to happen, right? Eternals comes out. Disney puts out Eternals. And let's say they decided to go straight home viewing. Yay! $20 rental. Yay! Here's what's going to happen. The exact same thing that I do with when the UFC fights are on. I order the UFC fights for $60, but I also have 6, 10, sometimes 20 people come over and watch it. So great, you got the one $60 thing, but I got 20 people coming over to watch it. Same thing's going to happen. If they put out, like they start doing these event kind of releases, it's exactly what will happen. Because it's what we should do. It's what makes most sense. Going to have a big event night? Okay, guys. You know, Wonder Woman 84 is on. They're charging $28 to stream it. Okay, great. And I'm going to put out my Evite. I'm going to send it out to all my friends. Come on over next Thursday night. We're going to have a party over here. We're going to have some dinner. And we're going to have 15 of us sit around and watch it. Well, now, instead of the studio getting $15 a ticket for a dozen people, which you do the math, yay, they got $25 rental. Those economics do not work for the movie industry. Those economics do not work for the movie industry. That is why every other studio other than Universal hasn't been an idiot about it. That's why Warner Brothers is respecting it. That's why Disney is respecting it. That's why Paramount is respecting it, and they're not being stupid like Universal. And that's why Universal had to come with their tail between their legs going, sorry, that's not what we meant. That's why. Because that's the only way the movie industry survives. I'm not saying it's going to be like that forever, but right now that's the way it works. And it is the best way to watch a movie. That's the way filmmakers in their art make these movies to be watched on the big screen in environments like a movie theater. But again, that's not for everybody. But again, the bottom line is the economics do not work. They don't work. When you've got these idiot studios making movies for $200 million production budget, and then they spend marketing. By the way, just because you put it on streaming doesn't mean you can spend any less money on marketing. They're going to have to spend just as much, if not more, on marketing. So now you're talking about movies that need to make $500 million to break even. Guess what? Maybe $450 million to break even. The streaming model doesn't get you that money. It just doesn't. It's been proved. It just doesn't get you enough money for that. And that's kind of the big problem here, Josh. That's the problem. And I'm not saying it's going to be like that forever. I'm not saying that's what it's going to be like forever. But that right now, that's the way the movie industry is funded. That's the way the movie industry gets the money into the system to crank out these movies that we like to enjoy. So I don't know. It's a different sort of paradigm. Now, it may work better for you that way, but that's not the way the industry can survive. So I don't know. It's just something we got to take a look at and see how this kind of evolves over the next, few years. All right. Peter Pacheco writes, if this pandemic hit between Infinity War and Endgame, how would it have affected the box office, and what do you think Marvel would have done? Well, Marvel would have just delayed Endgame. I mean, that's just it. Because if they had put it on streaming, what do they make? I don't know, 300 million instead of almost 3 billion. Interesting thing here. Endgame is the highest box office film of all time, making nearly, like I said, a 2.7 something billion dollars. Crazy number, all-time record. In its first week of release in theaters, it made over $1 billion. When it came out on digital, do you know how much it made in its first week on digital? Remember, this is the biggest film of all time. Some of you already know this because I said it on the John Campea Show before. In its first week in theater, it made $1 billion, over $1 billion. In its first week in digital, it made 30 million. Now, that's not exactly, to be fair, that's not exactly an apples to apples comparison, because in this situation, a lot of people had already seen Endgame, right? But still, people were clamoring to watch it. And with all the people excited to watch it and waiting for its digital release, and it's the biggest film of all time, and the biggest film of all time, made $30 million in its opening week on digital, as opposed to $1 billion in the theaters. What Disney would have done was delayed Endgame. They would have waited as long as they needed to wait to put that movie out in theaters. And it would have affected the box office for sure. I have no doubt about that. But what Disney would have done, they would have waited. And waited as long as it would have taken. All right, a fan of Peanuts writes, wow, Joker made more money than Rise of Skywalker. I think it did. Well, Joker, I mean, it's another $1 billion film thing, so it made more than a lot of movies. It made more than a hell of a lot of movies, not just Rise of Skywalker. It was also a better film than Rise of Skywalker. Little Bear Whitefeather writes, hey, John and Rob, my favorite all-time movie, Spartacus. I love Spartacus. I am Spartacus. Fried green tomatoes, Green Mile, like a little bit of color green in there. Coming to America, which you should be excited about the sequel coming then. And The Thing, what are yours? Well, I mean, I don't give lists or anything, but like amongst my favorite films of all time, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Spartacus, Shawshank Redemption, Lawrence of Arabia, going through my head, The Highlander. Yes, The Highlander Part 1 is one. So those are, but obviously my big ones, of course, are the Star Wars films. So the Star Wars original trilogies, my favorite films of all time, the Lord of the Rings films, all of them, Shawshank Redemption, the Godfather films. These are a few of my favorite things. You got a number of really good films that are on your list as well. Like I said, Spartacus is up there for me too. All right. Salil writes, honoring Irfan Khan's legacy, I'd recommend that everybody watch The Namesake. One way we can honor the actor and his work. I'm not familiar with The Namesake. Hold on a second. The Namesake. The Namesake is a 2006 film. It's also got Cal Penn in it. Okay. And Brooke Smith is in it as well. Look at that. Okay, American-born Gogol, the son of Indian immigrants, wants to fit in among his fellow New Yorkers despite his family's unwillingness to let go of the traditional ways. Well, I am also a big fan of Cal Penn. He was actually really good in this little show that I really enjoyed called, with Kiefer Sutherland. Why am I forgetting the name of the Lone Survivor? I think it's called, no, not Lone Survivor. Designated Survivor. That was the name of it. Cal Penn was really good in that show, as a matter of fact. I liked him a lot. So that's fine. I've not heard of this one, The Namesake. I will put this one on my list because I like everybody involved. Directed by Mira Nair, I should say. All right. I'm going to have to check that out. Thank you for putting that on the list, man. All right. Next up, Sahil writes, with the Trolls 2 VOD movie and all the misleading press about its quote-unquote success, do you think Universal is trying to be VOD pioneers and pivot away from theaters? No, I don't think they're trying to be pioneers. Here's what I think, all right? Let's say you're in business and you have one of your biggest expenditures one of your biggest expenditures is the waterman. I don't know. I'm just making something up here. So you run a business and you've got a guy who delivers your bottled water every week. But man, that bill is costing you $3,000 a week. And you've done it. And it's always successful. The water always comes. The water's always there when you need it. When your customers come in, they always have the best quality water. They have a good experience with the water, so they keep coming. So you're making money and you're happy. But man, you're still paying $1,000 a week to this water guy. Wouldn't it be great if we could keep some of that money? Wouldn't it be great if we could find some way to circumvent the water guy? And so you build these ratchety pipes that bring in dirty water. And okay, so the customers don't like it as much and they don't come as much. And you eventually figure out, you know what? It's expensive to keep giving $1,000 a week to the water guy, but that's what makes the business work. So you pay it. And I think that's kind of the situation Universal is in with theaters. So yeah, listen, theaters keep a bunch of money. It's expensive. They keep a bunch because it's expensive to run movie theaters. So they keep a chunk of the money, not as much as most people think, but they keep a chunk of the money. And I get it. Universal's trying to think, well, isn't there some way we could do this, make all of our money without having to pay them all that money? And I just think this is them trying to figure that out. And, you know, when you've been in partnership with theaters for almost 100 years and they've made you billions of dollars and you start to thumb your nose at them, you got to expect them to get a little pissed off at that and they might try to hurt you. You try to hurt them, they're going to turn around and try to hurt you. So it's, yeah, who knows? I don't think it's them trying to be pioneers though. I think it's just them trying to keep more of their money, which I get. It's business. It's business. I get it, but you got to be smart about it. And they have not been smart. All right. Josiah writes, Regal said they won't show movies debut day and date. Well, like this is what I was saying on the show earlier today. AMC coming out and responding to Universal saying, if you play movies day and date, we're not going to show your Universal movies. That's not new. That has always been the rule. For decades, that's been the rule. You know, I was saying that on the show today, that AMC and all the other theaters of the North American Theater Owners Association, NATO, they all have that rule. If you want to put a movie in one of our theaters, you can't then release it on digital the same day or within the theatrical window, a 3-month window, right? And if you do, we're not going to play your movies. That has always been their rule. Always. Nothing has changed. What AMC said to Universal is just them saying, we are going to enforce the rules that we have, that you know we have. And what I said on the show this morning is like, you're going to see Regal follow suit. And sure enough, Regal today put out an announcement saying they're following AMC suit. They're telling Universal now too. Yeah, we're not going to play your movies, bud. Good luck getting that Fast and the Furious money. Good luck with that. Let's see how well you do without us. They won't do well. Spoiler alert. So yeah, I knew it wasn't gonna be long before they did, but we'll talk about the Regal move on that a little bit later, or on the John Campea Show tomorrow. All right, guys, just a couple more. Josiah also writes, an update to the story. Regal's parent company, Cineworld, which is the UK thing, released a statement. We will not be showing movies that failed to respect the windows. Yep. Absolutely, they did. And like I said, we will talk about that a little bit more in depth on the John Campea Show tomorrow. We'll go a little bit more in depth in that and look more at Cineworld's and Regal's response and expect other movie theater chains to follow suit. Expect them. You're going to see Universal going on the We're So Sorry tour pretty soon. You're going to see NBC Universal's chairman, Jeff Shell. You're going to be seeing him with his hat in his hand, his tail between his legs, going around and doing the, oh God, please forgive us for the stupid thing we said tour to all the theaters. You're going to see him. He's already started. He already put out that statement saying, no, you just misunderstood me. No. You know what the biggest contention point is between you and the theaters, and you said something that was clearly inflammatory. You knew exactly what you were saying. It isn't that the theaters misunderstood you. You knew exactly what you were saying, or you're one of the world's biggest idiots. And I personally do not believe that Jeff Shell is an idiot at all. So he knew what he was doing. And now he's got to go around and apologize and say, no, you just didn't understand me. I didn't mean that. Now that's what he's got to do. And you know what? They'll work it out. Jeff Shell's a smart guy. Adam Aaron's a smart guy. The people at Regal are smart people. They'll figure it out. They'll figure it out and they'll get this straightened up. It's going to take a little bit of genuflecting here. I think it's going to take a little bit of genuflecting. All right. Last question, guys, then we'll wrap up this companion video. L Cartoon writes, "Hi, love you guys. Thank you so much, L Cartoon. Your thoughts on the We Are One, a global film festival, the YouTube event by Tribeca, where many film festivals, Cannes, Toronto, Sundance are showing their movies for free." I don't know a lot about it other than I know about it. You know what I mean? I know about it. I don't know a lot about it. It's a tremendous idea. There's no downside. It's a great, why not? I think it's a tremendous idea. Now, how well is it going to execute? Has it already started? I don't even know. But I think in concept, why not? You know, South by Southwest, wasn't it Amazon Prime that decided to hold the virtual film festival, the virtual South by Southwest film festival? I know a lot of people really appreciated that. So I think El Cartoon, I think this is a great idea. I really do. I think it is an excellent, excellent idea. So you'll see what it kind of works out to be. Okay, guys, listen. That'll do it for this installment of the companion video. Thank you guys for being here. And listen, a special thank you to all you guys who sent in those questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, when you sent in the questions, you actually supported the channel. And you're part of the reason why we're able to have the equipment and the gear and the personnel and everything to make these videos possible. So thank you very much, guys, for supporting the channel while you were doing it. Don't forget, the John Campea Show returns again tomorrow morning. Make sure you come back and join us. That will do it for me for now, guys. Thanks a lot for being here. My name is John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.